Imagine standing at the base of a cathedral so massive that the sheer weight of its tower presses on your chest like bass at a festival. It's not medieval, not centuries old. It's a 20th century giant born in the middle of shipbuilding, jazz clubs, and world wars. Liverpool Cathedral isn't just a building, it's the city's soul in stone, defiant, ambitious, and unapologetically extra. I'm James, but online I go by Andrade, and in this series, Sketch and Story, we dive deep into the world's most mysterious architectural marvels, while sketching them live. This one, I'm working digitally, layering ink strokes and texture as we explore Liverpool Cathedral. So what are we uncovering today? We'll rewind to its foundations, how a port city demanded the biggest cathedral in Britain, and how a 22-year-old architect pulled off the commission of a lifetime. And then we'll wander through its Gothic arches, rose windows, and towers, step inside to feel the echo of the largest organ in the country, decode symbols carved in stone and glass, and even dip into the weird and haunted stories hiding under its shadow. Because Liverpool Cathedral isn't just architecture, it's an experience, one stitched into the history of the city and its myths. And to understand how it all began, we need to go back to the origins and early foundations when Liverpool decided it was time to build a church worthy of its booming global status. The story starts with a diocese in 1880, the Church of England carved out of the Diocese of Liverpool, separating from the Diocese of Chester. The city was booming, ports, trade, docks, immigrants, and yet there was no grand set for an Anglican worship. They made do with St. Peter's Church on Church Street, but many thought it was too small and even ugly and hideous, especially for a city that prided itself on status and civic grandeur. In 1901, the idea got serious. Bishop Francis Chavas led efforts to build a cathedral worthy of Liverpool's scale. A competition was announced stipulating a Gothic design. Several sites were examined, St. Peter's, St. Duke's, London Road Triangle, but the one that won was St. James's Mount, a site with visibility, elevation, and room. Even then, choosing the site involved debates, cost of land, accessibility, and symbolism. Then comes the plot twist. The winning designer, selected in 1903, was Giles Gilbert Scott, just 22, still a pupil in the Temple Morris practice, with hardly anything built to his name. In fact, he claimed his biggest project to date was designing a pipe rack. Wild, right? But he'd been steeped in the Gothic tradition. His grandfather and father were both architects in that lineage, and the assessors, George Frederick Broadley and Richard Norman Shaw, picked his design over many others. Initially, Broadley was appointed joint architect to help Scott with the enormous scale, especially given his youth. But tensions rose. Broadley had other jobs, including cathedrals in the United States, and absences strained their working relationship. When Broadley died in 1907, Scott finally had full creative control. The design was altered significantly by 1910, including a shift from twin towers at the west end to a single central tower. These were early design revisions, show how flexible Scott was. Tradition mattered, but he was willing to reshape the vision. First part that was built was the Lady Chapel, the Morning Chapel in early drafts, consecrated on 29th of June 1910, St. Peter's Day. It was not only a symbolic link to the old pro-cathedral, but also an early showcase of Scott's decorative promise. Stained glass, sculptures, and liturgical scheme that included female figures like Julian of Norwich, Josephine Butler, and Elizabeth Fry, unusual for an Anglican chapel in that era. By 1924, the cathedral had progressed enough to consecrate key parts: chancel, ambulatory, chapter house, and vestries. On the 19th of July, 1924, 20 years after laying the foundation in stone, in 1904, a major service took place with King George V and Queen Mary in attendance, archbishops and bishops from around the world. That didn't mean the whole building was done, but far from it. But now parts of it were serving worship, visible and real. So by the mid-1920s, Liverpool Cathedral was already starting to take serious shape, both in structure and symbolism. And what was built in those early years, Lady Chapel, chancel, vestries, not only gave a preview of Scott's ambition, but set the tone: material, scale, decorative program. Next up, we'll break down how the ambition turned into stone, the architecture and artistry of the sandstone, the facades, the stained glass schemes, and tower plan. Because Liverpool Cathedral is less one consistent style and more a mosaic of eras, styles, breaks, repairs, and triumphs. Liverpool Cathedral looks ancient, but it's basically a Gothic cathedral rebooted for the 20th century. Scott leaned on medieval inspiration, pointed arches, ribbed vaults, and a central tower, and scaled it up until it felt almost cinematic. The pinkish red sandstone makes the whole thing glow differently depending on the weather. Warm and soft at sunrise, moody and dark in the rain. From outside, that tower dominates the skyline, squatting on St. James Mount like a stone boss battle you can see for miles. Step closer and you'll notice the balance between detail and simplicity. Unlike some medieval cathedrals dripping with decoration, Liverpool plays a bit cooler. Its Gothic is clean, pared back, almost minimalist in places. But then you hit the west front and bam, an enormous stained glass window the size of a tennis court. Carvings, tracery, and statuary pull you back into the full medieval fantasy mode, a reminder that Scott was walking a tightrope between modern restraint and Gothic drama. Inside, the architecture feels even more intense. The nave stretches long and high, vaults soaring about 36 meters above you. Every arch funnels your gaze upward, every pier is thick enough to make you feel small. And then, the under-tower space, that's a vertical canyon of stone, one of the tallest interior vaults in Europe, making you crane your neck until you feel dizzy. Its Gothic theater is designed to make you whisper, whoa, even if you're not religious. And then there's the stained glass. Nearly every window tells a story. Old Testament on the north, New Testament on the south, and the Lady Chapel celebrating women of faith and reform. Light pours through these colored panels, drenching the stone in reds, blues, and purples, so the architecture feels alive, changing hour by hour, season by season. It's less like static decoration and more like a living art installation powered by the sun. Put it all together, and you've got a building that's both technical masterpiece and aesthetic flex. It's not just Gothic revival, it's Gothic on turbo mode, scaled to a city that was one of the world's biggest ports and wanted a cathedral to match. Liverpool Cathedral is like the architectural equivalent of an arena headliner, powerful, bold, and impossible to ignore. The moment you step through Liverpool Cathedral's doors, an outside world disappears. The traffic, chatter, even the hum of the city feels like it's been put on mute. Instead, you're swallowed by space stone soaring above your head, shadows stretching across the floor, and a hush that makes even your footsteps sound like they matter. It's less like walking into a church and more like entering a different dimension. Look up and the vaults rise higher than most skyscraper lobbies. The nave climbs around 36 meters, but under the central tower, that thing's really hit. Over 50 meters of vertical stone so high you almost get vertigo staring up. The effect is intentional. Gothic architecture has always been about lifting the soul upward. But here, it's exaggerated to arena proportions. You feel small and somehow bigger at the same time. Then there's the light. Morning sun filters through the east windows in soft blues and golds, while afternoon throws fire through the western glass, flooding the nave with crimson and purple. On cloudy days, the windows glow like lanterns. On bright ones, they explode in color. Every hour changes the mood, so the building is never the same place twice. Scott basically designed the sun to be part of the artwork. Sound here is its own character. The whispers bounce back to you with a soft echo, but when the Willis organ fires up, all 10,000 pipes of it, the space transforms into a vibrating chest cavity. Choirs melt into the stone, bells rumbles down from above, and even silence feels charged. It's like the building itself is alive, breathing through acoustics. So when you combine space, light, and sound, you don't just visit Liverpool Cathedral, you experience it. It's a full-body immersion. Your eyes chase color, your ears pick up echoes, your body feels the scale. And behind all that spectacle, there are layers of meaning carved into glass, stone, and statues, which is where we're headed next, where we decode the symbolism, relics, statues, and hidden meaning. Liverpool Cathedral is a building where every element carries a message. Some symbols are obvious, like Elizabeth Frink's welcoming Christ over the west door, arms open, body massive, gaze serious, pulling you into a mix of comfort and challenge. It's a reminder that this place isn't just about awe, it's also about relationship, one that asks something of you the moment you step inside. Above Tracy M's neon for you glows in pink script, I felt you and I knew you loved me. It's a raw, human, and startling in Gothic stone shell. Together, these two artworks bridge old and new, showing how symbolism evolves. Stone for timeless weight, neon for fleeting emotion, both carrying spiritual energy. But the Lady Chapel takes symbolism further. Its stained glass celebrates women, saints, reformers, and caregivers, set into glowing reds and blues. Light itself becomes the medium. Every sunrise and sunset reframes their presence, projecting their lives in shifting color. It's not static storytelling, it's dynamic symbolism that changes with the hours, like a living sermon written in glass and sunlight. Beneath these grand gesture memorials root the cathedral in human memory. The architect Giles Gilbert Scott is buried here, along with Bishop Chavas, who dreamed of the project into being. Even the bells tell stories. Great George, the 14-ton giant, tolls not in just notes but in legacy, its vibration carrying the memory of donors and the city that raised it. Symbolism here isn't just theological, it's civic, personal, and collective. And then there's the esoteric layer. Cathedrals are resonators, vast stone bodies turned by arches and vaults. Think cymatics, the way sound makes sand or water form geometric patterns. When the organ thunders or the bells shake the tower, the whole building hums with invisible designs. You can almost imagine those rose windows glowing in sync with unseen waveforms, stone ribs channeling resonance like a sacred instrument. In that sense, Liverpool Cathedral's true symbolism isn't just what you see, it's what you feel. Light, color, vibration, all combining into an esoteric geometry of the spirit. What makes Liverpool Cathedral jaw-dropping isn't just its size, it's the precision behind it. Giles Gilbert Scott was basically 22 when he won the commission, but his design instincts were already locked in. He didn't just sketch a big church, he created a blueprint where every proportion, every vault height, every line of sight works like a conductor guiding an orchestra. Even with decades of stop and start construction, geometry stayed intact, holding the whole monster together. Numbers themselves are insane. The building stretches nearly 189 meters long, making it the longest cathedral in the world. Central Tower rises over 100 meters, while the under-tower arches vault up to 53 meters, taller than most office towers. These aren't just stats, they're proportions tuned to amplify awe. Walk into the nave and your body instantly feels the difference between human scale and cathedral scale. That's Scott's geometry doing the psychological work. Light was part of the equation too. Windows were placed so high that sunlight filters in like beams from another world, spilling color across ribs and vaults. The north side of the Old Testament stories, the south side the new. So even the movement of the sun becomes a sermon in geometry. Law to fulfillment, prophecy to promise. It's storytelling through alignment. Now layer in the esoteric reading. Gothic cathedrals have always flirted with sacred geometry, and Liverpool continues that lineage in modern form. Think about cymatics again. When sound creates patterns in sand or water, it forms mandalas, stars, spirals. The cathedral's layout echoes that. The cruciform plan as a cosmic cross, the rose windows as frequency wheels, the tower as a tuning fork for the city. In this light, Liverpool Cathedral isn't just built to house worship, it's engineered to generate resonance. That's the genius of it. Geometry here isn't decoration, it's function, symbolism, and mysticism all wrapped together. The cathedral is both a structure and a score waiting for sound, light, and people to play it. And when it's activated, it hums with something bigger than math, which sets us up perfectly for the weirdest layer of all, where we dive into the esoteric and occult themes, ghost stories, legends, and shadows that still cling to St. James Mount. Liverpool Cathedral might be a house of prayer by day, but by night its shadow leans into something stranger. The building sits on St. James Mount, overlooking a former quarry turned cemetery where nearly 58,000 people were buried between 1829 and 1936. Walk the canyon-like paths of St. James Cemetery, and you'll find crumbling headstones, mausoleums carved into rock walls, an eerie sense that the ground itself hums with history. It's no wonder locals call it one of the most haunted places in the city. Among the legends is the so-called Christmas vampire. Stories tell of a cloaked, smoke-like figure stalking the cemetery near the old well on winter nights. Witnesses claim to feel drained, chased, or frozen with fear. Paranormal groups still tour the site, swearing they've seen shadows dart between tombs or heard disembodied voices echoing from quarry walls. Whether it's damp acoustics, the tricks of gaslight, or something darker, the tale refuses to die. There are whispers of hidden tunnels too. Some believe passages connect to Old Quarry Cemetery with the cathedral above, creating a network of forgotten pathways. No hard evidence has ever surfaced, but in a city built on smuggling and subterranean engineering, the idea feels plausible enough to keep alive. And if you've ever walked to the cemetery at dusk, the acoustics alone, whispers carrying farther than they should, make it easy to imagine voices from underground. From an esoteric lens, the cathedral itself becomes part of the mystery. Gothic design has always been tied to sacred geometry, and when paired with the sheer resonance of the bells and organ, you get a building that feels like a giant tuning device. Cymatics gives us a visual metaphor. Imagine those massive low-frequency organ notes turning invisible sound into patterns that ripple across the vaults and rose windows. Some mystics suggest that cathedrals like this were designed not just for worship, but as frequency temples, places where vibration could align body, soul, and cosmos. So when you stand on St. James Mount at twilight looking up at the cathedral tower over rows of graves, you feel the duality, life and death, light and shadow, worship and fear. It's both sanctuary and specter, beacon and tomb. And that's the occult power of Liverpool Cathedral. Not just the ghosts people whisper about, but the way stone, story, and resonance all fuse into a kind of urban mythos. Liverpool Cathedral isn't just a building, it's a whole experience, from its origins as the bold dream of a port city, to the genius of Giles Gilbert Scott's design, to the way light, sound, and stone still pull you into awe. This cathedral is part monument, part living artwork. We've seen how its windows tell stories in color, how its geometry feels like resonance turned into stone, and how the cemetery beneath whispers ghost lore that adds an occult edge. It's a space where history, community, and mystery overlap, and that's why it still captivates people today. Whether you're here for the architecture, the symbolism, or the esoteric fringe, Liverpool Cathedral proves that even a 20th century structure can carry the weight of centuries of myth. If you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next cathedral story. Drop a comment below with what part of Liverpool Cathedral surprised you most: the sound, the ghosts, or the sheer scale. And if you want to help me keep making these videos, you can support my work directly. Links are in description for prints, tutorials, and deeper behind-the-scenes explorations. Every bit helps fuel the next sketch and story. Thanks for spending this time exploring Liverpool Cathedral with me, and until the next deep dive, keep looking closer, keep sketching, and keep chasing the hidden stories in stone. I'll see you in the next one.